At the start of the episode, Kiroshima wonders why Yaeka is acting so strangely lately. She's been asking him about his schedules repeatedly. Konami deduces that Yaeka wants to get to know more about Kiroshima. When he goes to check on his little miss's room, she is preparing for something but doesn't want Kiroshima to know just yet. Sugihara interrupts the two and drags Kiroshima to watch a movie together. Kiroshima senses that Yaeka, Sugihara, and the other subordinates are conspiring to hide something from him. After watching the movie together, Kiroshima becomes even more suspicious and goes on to check the reception room, only to find Yaeka preparing for something once again. Sugihara begs him not to enter the room, but Kiroshima nearly assaults him. Before he can interrogate them further, Kazuhiko interrupts and asks Kiroshima to come to his private room. In Kazuhiko's room, Kiroshima explains everyone's secretive behavior, including Yaeka's. Kazuhiko scolds Kiroshima for almost losing his temper, but then he also begins acting strangely to keep Kiroshima distracted. Kazuhiko keeps holding back Kiroshima when he tries to walk away from the room. When the boss finally lets him go, he opens the door to a surprise birthday party that Yaeka had planned while everyone else conspired to distract Kiroshima. Yaeka then gives Kiroshima a drawing she made of him as a birthday present. Kiroshima is touched as he has actually forgotten his own birthday. After celebrating the party, the family goes to Konami's restaurant for dinner. At dinner, Yaeka learns Kiroshima actually has a favorite meal, agadashi tofu, that he's always ordered whenever he visited Konami's place. Konami reminisces about how useless Kiroshima was as a young man, but his absent-mindedness actually led him to buying one of Yaeka's favorite toys, a stuffed sheep called Mimi. Kiroshima is surprised to know that he is the one who bought Mimi for Yaeka. Konami also reminisces about how her sister Miyuki brought Kazuhiko on a dinner date for the first time. She was so nervous that she overpoured Kazuhiko's drink. The anime then goes into a flashback when Miyuki and Kazuhiko met for the first time. The couple bumped into each other for the first time when Miyuki was working in a flower shop. They realized they had an interest in flower arranging, and Miyuki asked Kazuhiko on a date without even realizing it. After noticing that Miyuki had asked Kazuhiko for a date, Miyuki's boss teased her for being direct with Kazuhiko and rooted for her. During the date, Miyuki wanted to eat a strawberry sundae, but she didn't have enough money to pay. Kiroshima noticed that Miyuki wanted the sundae, so he ordered it for her. Despite his stern demeanor, Miyuki realized that Kazuhiko was a kind man. He even bought a sweet cake for Konami. After Miyuki mentioned that she lived with her younger sister, the couple had so much fun that day that they agreed to a second date. At present, Konami realizes that everyone used to be happy together as they often visited her restaurant for dinner together. But after Miyuki got into an accident and entered the hospital, it felt like everyone she cared about had drifted apart. Kiroshima, Aoi, and the others stopped hanging out in a restaurant, while Kazuhiko frequented the hospital to look after Miyuki. Konami and Yaeka were left all alone, but ever since Yaeka started visiting her mom in the hospital once again, she has begun bringing them back together. Before concluding their dinner, Yaeka comments that her aunt's egg rolls are extra delicious today, since they're all sharing the meal together. Konami realizes Yaeka is now a grown, thoughtful girl who has undoubtedly taken after her mom, Miyuki. While returning home, Kiroshima gives his thanks to Yaeka for organizing this surprise birthday party. Yaeka asks if he likes a drawing that she gifted him, to which Kiroshima replies that the drawing is far better than his actual face. While the two promise each other to make more memories together in the days to come, a man secretly takes pictures of Yaeka. Before going to bed, Kiroshima promises that he will take Yaeka to the park the following day. Meanwhile, a man looks at Yaeka's photograph and grins with bad intentions. The following day at the park, Yaeka is assisted by Kiroshima, Sugihara, and Kanehira, where she meets her friends Katie and Sarah. The little girls decide to play the red light, green light game, and the Yakuza members also join them. After that, they also play hide and seek together. One day, Kiroshima heads outside to pick up Yaeka from school. Meanwhile, Yaeka waits for him in the flower shop when she is approached by a man named Shinmoto. On his way, Kiroshima stopped by Shinmoto's friends, who happen to have a bad history with him. Apparently, the men are from another Yakuza group, and since Kiroshima has wiped them out, they want to take revenge on him. Just then, Shinmoto arrives at the scene, who has now kidnapped Yaeka. Seeing his little miss with this enemy, Kiroshima cannot resort to violence. He is instead forced to submit to being beaten until Shinmoto also hits Yaeka and makes her unconscious. Kiroshima then breaks Shinmoto's arm, beats him severely, and almost shoots him in the head, but Yaeka wakes up. After seeing Kiroshima brutally attacking Shinmoto, the rest of the men flee from there. Kiroshima immediately rushes Yaeka to the hospital, where she is diagnosed with a concussion. In the hospital hospital room, Kiroshima is desperate for revenge, but Kazuhiko reminds him that his job is to care for Yaeka, and since it was his daughter who was attacked, Kazuhiko wants to look for the culprits himself. He orders Kiroshima to stay with Yaeka until she is back to normal, and leaves to find out more about Shinmoto and his Yakuza members. However, later when Sugihara comes to check on Yaeka, he doesn't find Kiroshima with her. Next, Kiroshima walks alone down the streets, thinking he failed to protect his beloved little miss. Masaya bumps into him and tries to poke Kiroshima into a fight, but he is thrown aside. Back at home, Sugihara reports to Kazuhiko about missing Kiroshima. Kazuhiko thinks Kiroshima walked away to take revenge by himself. In the following scene, we learn that Mashiro is the one who orchestrated Yaeka's kidnapping. He hated seeing Kiroshima as the passive and lovable babysitter, so he wanted to trigger Kiroshima's actual demon side. From his recent finding, Sugihara learns that Shinmoto used to be a Yakuza member of the Amaya Yakuza group, and the other men, Igawa and Yano, used to be members of the Shirakawa Yakuza. Both families Kiroshima helped destroy 10 years ago. He reports to Kazuhiko, who realizes the attack on his daughter Yaeka wasn't against Sakuragi group, but against Kiroshima personally. Just then, Sugihara receives a call from one of his associates, Takuchi, who warns him that Kiroshima has been brutally beating Shinmoto's associates. Kazuhiko then orders Sugihara to get their car ready. In an abandoned building, Kiroshima is seen targeting former members of the Amaya and Shirakawa group. He pitilessly thuds them to the ground. Meanwhile, from the shadows, Mashiro watches with extreme pleasure as Sakuragi's demon has finally returned. Kiroshima's fighting spree stops when Kazuhiko arrives at the scene and scolds him for disobeying his orders. He wants Kiroshima to stay in the hospital, by Yaeka's side. Kiroshima apologizes, but Kazuhiko informs him that he's Yaeka's babysitter, not the killer he used to be portrayed before. Sakuragi's demon should remain in the past. When they learn that Yaeka is awake in the hospital, Kiroshima and Kazuhiko rush back. Yaeka begins crying when she sees Kiroshima, and Kiroshima can get a good rest after his little miss has finally woken up. Following the incident, Yaeka takes leave from school but completes all of her homework assignments before she can resume school. Sugihara comments that the young miss is very hardworking from such a young age. Kiroshima joins them, and Yaeka asks him if they can go to the fireworks festival. However, the festival has already ended, so Kiroshima promises to arrange a private firework festival instead. Later that evening, Yaeka celebrates the fireworks with her friends and family. When everyone has returned home, Yaeka asks to light one last firework with Kiroshima, which he gladly accepts. When she asks if they can celebrate the festival next year as well, Kiroshima hesitatingly nods his head. The following morning, Sugihara wakes up to a strange text from Kiroshima to look after Yaeka. Kazuhiko later reveals that Kiroshima quit the Yakuza so he wouldn't cause them more trouble. He realizes that Kiroshima needs some time off on his own and orders Sugihara to babysit Yaeka for the time being. Sugihara is surprised that Kiroshima would leave his young miss without even saying goodbye. Yaeka learns about the situation and is heartbroken. After seeing Yaeka's condition, Sugihara decides that they are going to find Kiroshima and bring him back home. Elsewhere, Kiroshima plays Russian roulette by himself and is disappointed when he survives. Mashiro locates Kiroshima and boasts that he knew Sakuragi's demon was still alive deep in Kiroshima's soul. He also hints he orchestrated Yaeka's kidnapping plan with the other two Yakuza groups, which led to Kiroshima's current condition. Kiroshima almost shoots him, but he misses. While walking around the park, Toichiro Aoi spots Kiroshima and asks why he looks so forlorn. Kiroshima brushes it off, saying that it's nothing important. Aoi is concerned that he has never seen Kiroshima in such a pitiful state. Even though Kiroshima refuses to tell him what happened, Aoi advises him to go home. Just then, Yaeka arrives at the scene crying and hugs Kiroshima. She tells him to never run away from home again. Sugihara also arrives and confronts Kiroshima over his selfishness, demanding he apologizes for abandoning the family. Sugihara adds that Kiroshima is second in command in the Sakuragi group, a brother he looks up to, and a caretaker of the young miss, so he cannot just run away from his responsibilities. Instead, he is supposed to be responsible, face his mistakes, and unite with his family. Kiroshima realizes Sugihara is actually right and agrees to return home. Yaeka forbids Kiroshima from running away from home again. The following day, Kiroshima and Sugihara get into trouble for making too much noise in the house. Aoi arrives at the house to meet Kazuhiko and later joins Kiroshima and Sugihara. During their conversation, Aoi mentions Kiroshima looked very cute during his childhood days. After hearing this, Yaeka wants to see Kiroshima's childhood photos, which are still in Aoi's house. So Aoi invites her to visit his house so he can also play with his son Kauki and be a big sister to his daughter Hina. After getting permission from her father, Yaeka and Kiroshima visit Aoi's home later that afternoon. Aoi, his wife Sane, and Kauki greet them at the door. Kauki, given his crush on Yaeka, is more than excited to see her. He also goes on to hit on her while eating a cake together. Their conversation is interrupted by Hina, who has just woken up and cries for her mother. Sane goes to the bedroom to get her child and Yaeka follows behind. Even if Hina is not yet old enough to talk, she already looks up to Yaeka as a trustworthy friend and big sister figure, since Kauki tends to praise Yaeka while at home. Sane explains that Kauki always talked about Yaeka to his younger sister, and due to that, it was quick for Hina to recognize and like her instantly. Meanwhile, Aoi shows his collection of shades to Kiroshima and offers one of them to him. Kiroshima thinks all glasses look the same, so he's comfortable wearing his own. Yaeka notices a pair from afar and Kauki also joins her. Kauki notes that his father and Yaeka's babysitter are having fun together like they used to whenever they were their age. As promised, Aoi brings out a photo album and shows a collection of photos to Yaeka. She notices a photograph where she is hugging Kiroshima's leg. Aoi comments that that was the time when Kiroshima came back all bloodied up and Kazuhiko had grounded him. Looking at the photograph, Kiroshima reminisces about the time he was grounded at the house when Yaeka was just a toddler. Since Kazuhiko and Aoi had to attend a meeting, he had no one to talk to. Kanami was out shopping and Miyuki was busy with house chores. Only a toddler, Yaeka, was available at the moment, and when the young miss signaled him into playing with her, he didn't realize that he actually enjoyed being by her side. Just then, Miyuki arrived at the scene and was happy to see Kiroshima playing with her young daughter. Back at present, Kiroshima realizes he was staring at the photograph for too long. While returning home, Yaeka asks if they can go to a flower shop the following day, since she wants to give some flowers to her mother. Kiroshima gladly agrees. As promised, Kiroshima and Yaeka visit a flower shop the next day. Kiroshima notices kalanchoe flowers, which used to be his mother's favorite. After getting her flowers, Yaeka insists he is too busy for his mother. Later that night, Yaeka ponders what to write in a letter addressed to her mother, while Kiroshima sits alone in his room with the kalanchoe flower he brought earlier that day. Next, Kiroshima visits a graveyard, and it turns out that his mother and father have already passed away. He stands in front of their tomb with the kalanchoe flowers and reminisces about the time his mother taught him about the specialty of her favorite flowers. It was the first flowers she bought for his father, right before Kiroshima was born. Kiroshima then shares about how he is babysitting his boss's child, and ever since she came into his life, he has changed a lot. His only wish is to let his parents know that he is happy, as they always wanted for him. Meanwhile, Yaeka concludes her letter addressed to her mother by saying that Kiroshima has helped her a lot, and ever since she became friends with him, she's been able to make new friends at school, and that she is happy too.